It's been a long week.
It has, hasn't it?
It has. But you know what? I'm really glad we're doing the episode that we're doing today. We had something slightly different planned originally,
Yes.
but in order to give Dina some more time for research and writing, because it's a big case, we've decided to do some grim encounters.
I'm so excited. We were going to wait until kind of Halloween time
Yeah.
to do this, and we're doing it now, and I am thrilled. These are some of my favorite episodes that we do.
Yeah.
And it does give me a week-long break from research. However, it's not a break this week because I'm just doing a week of extra research for this next big series.
Yeah, you haven't stopped researching.
It's the case that we're going to be doing next week, just to give you guys a little sneak peek. It's something a lot of people are talking about, which I always feel like there's extra pressure when we do these cases.
Yeah, because there's a lot more eyeballs on it.
Yes, exactly. And I always want to do it justice and do it properly. So we're going to be going back to our usual stuff next week, but this is extra credit 6 now. So
No, grim encounters.
Yeah, thank you.
All that to say, hello everybody, I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Dina. Welcome to the Grim Curriculum.
So yes, Grim Encounters number 6.
6. I'm so stoked about this.
Me too. It's been a long week and I don't have a whole lot left in me, but I was really, really looking forward to this.
I love a scary story. I really, really do. And I like this because we're doing a little bit of a mixture this time. We're doing some true stories, we're doing a fictional story, and I can't wait.
Yeah. Should we just jump into it?
Let's do it.
Okie dokie.
All right. So we have 3 stories from our dear listener, Christian. Thank you so much for your submissions.
Hello. Yes.
And I'm going to start off with the first one. And this one I thought was crazy.
Okay, I'm ready.
Shortly after I moved to Calgary, I was in the downtown Bay store with my girlfriend at the time. Whilst passing a person in one of the aisles, I bumped into them and turned to face a fellow, and as a proper Canadian, apologized. I didn't think anything of it until a couple minutes later when all hell broke loose. What was happening was the takedown of the person who had been caught shoplifting. On the news that evening, I discovered that the person was in fact the notorious serial killer Charles Ng, who had been hiding out in a tent in Fish Creek Park in the city.
Holy cow.
So a little bit about Charles Ng, for those of you
Yes.
who don't
Yeah.
know, he is someone we're going to cover in the future.
Absolutely.
For sure. So Charles Ng, along with his pal Leonard Lake, were responsible for the murders of several women who they had this whole thing in their minds of something called the M girl.
Oh, I didn't know
And what they would do, it was all based off of a story that Leonard Lake had read when he was younger and become
Okay.
obsessed with. And the idea was a living sex slave.
Oh God, one of these guys again?
Yes. So what they would do is their goal was to keep them alive for as long as possible. However, unfortunately, they did die. And these 2 guys were absolute monsters. Leonard Lake was dead before there was even a trial. He had a cyanide capsule.
Whoa.
He would keep them hidden throughout his house. He was ex-military and very much like a doomsday kind of guy. So he would keep them in his house, and he had one, I think it was like in a compartment in one of his teeth.
I've heard of that. That's very classic, like spy shit, I
Yeah.
guess, to put it very, very simply.
Yeah, so he killed himself in his jail cell.
Whoa.
So this was in the States. Now, Charles Ng had family in Calgary.
Yes.
So when everything went down, he ran off and hid out in Calgary.
Go figure.
And he was arrested shoplifting in a Calgary mall. So this story, when I read that, I
Whoa.
was like, oh, dang. Because I mean, it's...
Of all
Yeah.
the evil people you could possibly bump into by accident, like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And then to go home and be like, oh, I met that dude. Sort
Yeah.
of, kind of.
Right? That's not someone you want to bump into. He was a yucky guy. They're on the list. We're going to cover them. It is a disgusting story. That is the only way that I can put it. It is one of those things where he is a vile human being. He's on death row.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. He's not doing great.
how old is he now? Do we know?
He's 65 now.
Okay. So not a spring chicken by any means.
No, he is not. And just one of those stories where the whole thing and like the whole way that the 2 of them met is wild, and everything that goes along with it is it's Again, it's disgusting.
I knew it was bad. I didn't realize it was quite that bad, but I guess, yeah, we'll save that for another day.
Yeah, 11 women between the two of them that they
Lord
murdered.
have
So,
mercy,
yep.
Christian.
That I'm glad that that's your whole encounter with him
Yes.
and that nothing happened because ew.
No kidding. Okay, so for story number 2 from Christian, it begins in Calgary, along the Elbow River, are a set of ruins, now only the outline of a stone foundation. These are the ruins of Lindsay's Folly, what was to be a grand house started in 1913 by Neville Lindsay, a successful physician and Calgary's first Freemasonic Grand Master, and it was a dream residence for his beloved wife. Unfortunately, financial issues caused by the outbreak of World War I made it impossible for Lindsay to complete the mansion, and it fell into ruin and finally fully collapsed in the 1950s. A few years ago, one evening in early winter of 2010, my partner and I chose to wander up the bike pathway, then onto the side path to visit the ruin. It was just falling dark and a light snow had started to fall. I love the paint or the picture you're painting for us here. I love
I
this.
know.
Um we reached the ruin and we looked it over whilst briefly discussing the history when we both clearly heard the sound of a horse traveling along the bike path a few meters behind us. We assumed that this must be a police officer patrolling on horseback, as they sometimes did. When we returned to the bike path a couple of minutes later, there was not only no sign of a horse constable, but also absolutely no hoofprints anywhere in the fresh snow in either direction, despite us still being able to clearly see our own footprints from earlier. We got a bit of a fun chill from that and decided to head back to our vehicle. I've passed the ruins many times on the pathway since, at various times a day, but have never seen or heard anything odd since.
I looked this place up
Ooh.
because
Yeah,
I
I
wanted
haven't
to.
heard of
Yeah, I'd
this.
never
And
heard
I
of it
lived in
either.
Calgary only for 9 months, but
I looked it up and I am now determined that next time I'm in Calgary, I want to go visit that.
absolutely, because I mean, Calgary's not that far away from
No,
us.
we
Like,
can.
that's an achievable goal that we can
Right?
do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going there next time I'm in
That's
Calgary.
super cool. I like that.
All right, story number 3. Back in the mid 1990s, a friend of mine was running a small bistro out of the ground floor of the Calgary Grain Exchange building. Now, this is a very old building, for Calgary at least, built in 1909. My friend's bistro was a bit tight on space, so they had been able to secure access and use part of the building's basement for storage of certain things, like tinned and dried foodstuffs. My friend explained to me that none of the employees liked going down there because of a creepy feeling and strange noises, including old timey music. I was, of course, dangerously curious and needed to investigate.
I
Relatable.
was gonna say brave, but I would be tempted.
Right? Opening the access door, I had not gone down more than 3 or 4 steps down when I quite distinctly heard 1920 style jazz music that sounded exactly like it was being played from a scratchy old record on an old phonograph. My heart rate and adrenaline jumped up a bit, but I was determined to have a look, so I proceeded down the stairs into the very dark basement. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, the music abruptly stopped. I had a look about with my little torch, and there was nothing to be seen except the expected stored foodstuffs. The music was a regular thing encountered by staff until the bistro closed a year or so later. I have always wanted to return, but I no longer have connections with anyone through whom I could gain access.
I think that's super cool.
I
Because I
like
mean, with
that.
a building that old in 1909,
Mhm.
1920s, it would have still been a relatively new building, and I could
Yeah,
imagine some sort of secret parties maybe happening in the cellar or something like that.
I like that.
So do I. That's super cool.
I like stories of paranormal experiences that are like that because that's what we call a residual haunting,
Yes. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so it's just I've talked about this, I think, every Grim Encounters, but it's basically the spirits or whatever it is, they're like on a loop. So it's the
Yeah, it's
same
like
thing happening all the time.
imprinted in
Exactly.
time sort of thing.
And something like that is just so, like, harmless. I mean, I'm sure it would
Yeah.
scare the shit out of most people, but, like, it's harmless. It's not something that's malicious or out to hurt you. It's just a
Mhm.
memory of what that place used to be, and I love
Yeah.
that.
It reminds me, and I've told the stories a couple of times about the different areas in the UK that were like Roman settlements, and there's
Mhm.
noted times of many, many people throughout the last even 100 years, like old and modern, that are like, "We have seen Roman soldiers, like, the whole platoon go by,
Yeah.
and it's wild.
I like that. Thank you very much for your stories. We
Yes.
appreciate you. And as always, thank you for listening. You are awesome.
Yeah, Christian is always very active on our social media comments, which we very much appreciate.
I love people like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next up, we have some tales from our friend of the pod, Nova.
Hi, Nova.
Hello, hello. Okay, so back in 2010, I was on a ghost hunting tour. Our first stop was at a theater that was founded during the vaudeville days. It was built in 1916 and is currently going through renovations to keep it up. But during the historic stories of performers and history of the theater, a fellow tourist slash hunter jumped up and screamed, making all of us also jump. He then said his hat was lifted off of his head and thrown onto the floor behind him. It was found 2 rows back. However, this cannot be corroborated due to him being in the back behind everyone else. Poor guy. He was like, I swear to God, the ghosts are fucking
He's
with me.
like,
And
it
everyone's like,
happened.
I'm so sorry, but no one saw it.
Yeah, no one believes you. Sorry.
The second part, I have said this on your stream, but a little more to it. I live in a 2-bedroom house and have heard things at all hours. Usually, I attribute them to my animals. One room I use as my office has a computer desk and monitor, but no PC, as I can't afford one. I'm currently going through a divorce. She left on my birthday last year, but at least she took me out for sushi first. Oh, Nova, I'm so
Nova.
sorry. But thoughtful for the sushi, I suppose. Let you down easy? I don't know
Let
if
you
that.
down with a full tummy.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. But she took the evil eye. See inserted photo.
And Charlotte, I'm going to show you the photo.
Okay.
So it was interesting that this was mentioned because in Bosnian culture, this is a huge thing.
Are we talking about like the little blue evil eye?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen lots
So
of people with that.
I grew up with like these in the house and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very common. I don't have one in this house. I would love to have one in this house.
Because am I correct in saying that it's sort of supposed to protect you, and then if it cracks or anything happens to it, you have to get a new one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like absorbed all the bad juju
Exactly.
kind of thing.
Yeah. And
Okay.
some people will wear them as jewelry. Some people put
Mm-hmm.
them in their house, like I mentioned. But yeah, I thought that was kind of
Okay.
fun.
So, but since she took the evil eye, the LED lights, even though I have turned them off multiple times and removed the batteries, keep turning on. Door is kept closed. So either a playful ghost wanting the lights and colors from them, or a frogger living in my attic crawl space as my office has the only access to said space. Remind me what a frogger is again, because it was Nova that mentioned it in the stream last week, right? Or
Yes.
whenever, however long ago that was.
A frogger is basically a squatter.
Oh, so not like a ghost or anything, like
Nah.
a person.
Which is worse.
Oh, dude, the stories where it's like, oh yeah, we were hearing strange noises in our house and then we didn't think anything of it. And then there was a lady living in and would sneak out at night for our food and stuff. And I'm like, pardon me?
Have you seen the movie Parasite?
Oh, the Korean
Yes.
film? No, I haven't, but it is on my list.
You must. I waited a really long time to watch that one. And after I saw it, I was just like, oh, I don't like it.
I'm assuming it is related to the topic of this then.
Maybe.
Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. Context. The evil eye isn't as bad as it sounds. It's more like a ward you put near a window or entryway into your home. Eternally yours, Nova. I mean, hey, I'm not a superstitious person. I am, I guess, a little stitious.
Mm-hmm.
I am all for it. Like many different cultures, they have these things. Like, you know, Christians keep their crucifixes around. You got your evil eye. There's lots of different things like, you know, keeping a horseshoe above your door and like all these sorts of things. And I think at the end of the day, if it brings you a little more peace of mind,
Yep.
who fucking cares? You're not
I love
hurting
it.
anyone. Brings a little decor to your house.
Right.
And it makes you feel better. It helps you sleep at night.
For the record, Nova, I don't know if this is what you want to hear, but I hope for your sake it's a ghost.
Yeah. I don't like the idea of someone living in your walls or your crawl space.
Check your attic, my friend. See what's up.
Or maybe like get some cameras or something.
Right.
Just set
Get
them up.
some bells.
Just in case.
Get one of those like Home Alone little, what am I trying to say?
Like booby traps.
Thank you, booby trap. I can't think of words today at all. Wow.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, get a booby trap.
Let us know how that goes though, Nova. Please stay in touch.
Thank you very much for your stories, Nova. We appreciate you a whole lot.
Thank you. Okay, and last but not least, certainly not least, We have
We
a s
wanted to end
yeah.
with something a little different.
Mhm.
So, our last Grim Encounters 5, we shared 3 different stories from authors, and one of those authors was Manon Lyset, who is just wonderful.
Fan-frickin-tastic.
Yep, so we are gonna be sharing another one of their stories today. It's a little bit longer, but I always say Grim Encounters, these are wonderful bedtime stories to lull
Mhm.
you into a sense of, just a little bit of fear before you fall asleep, because we gotta keep you on your toes.
Yeah, just get your heart rate up a smidge before you go to
Of
bed.
course. So I went through a few different stories and I
Mhm.
picked this one because it just kind of, I don't know. You'll see.
I mean, I haven't read this story yet, but the title of this story is "I made the mistake of going to a new pizza place."
Now, this is a longer story, so
Okay.
we're going to each do a paragraph and we're going to
Yeah,
bounce back and forth.
sounds good.
Charlotte, would you like to get us started?
I guess so. Okay. I've received flyers in my mailbox for the new pizza place every week for the past month or so. First, introducing the grand opening, then advertising that they were open until 3 a.m., and finally, the standard fare of special deals and promo codes. Though the $5 medium pepperoni was tempting, I was loyal to my local mom and pop shop. I'd been going there for years, and I would never have considered cheating on them had I not had a sudden hankering for pizza at 2 a.m. one night. The new place was the only thing still open in the suburbs. Given the circumstances, I figured I could be forgiven for my indiscretion, so I grabbed my keys and headed out. I already love how this is starting.
Right. And also, I mean, a $5 pizza, I'd
I
do it
mean, hey,
too.
you can't go wrong.
The parking lot was empty, with the light of the pizza place acting as a beacon in the otherwise dark surroundings. Save for a gas station a few streets down, every other building was empty. And when I say empty, I mean with coming soon signs plastered on the windows announcing their future tenants and little to no furniture inside. I'm sure it was fine in the light of day, but in the early hours of the morning, there was something eerie about the new development. It didn't feel lived in, probably because it wasn't. They were connecting two suburbs that used to be separated by a forest and a highway. In the last year or so, they'd raised the forest to raise the buildings. Construction was nearing its end. In a few months, I had no doubt the place would be popping. For now, like I said, there was just the pizza place.
I walked in and the industrial lighting stung my eyes, forcing me to squint while they adjusted. To its credit, the place was nice and clean and it smelled amazing. I got a whiff of pizza and meat that had my mouth watering almost instantly. The place also had a semi open concept. There was the order counter, and behind it, a wall spanning only two-thirds the length of the room, leaving the door wide gaps on either side. The wall had a large kitchen hole cut out of its center with two shelves lined with heating elements. You could see straight into the kitchen both through the hole or by taking a few steps to the side and peering through the gaps. There were the usual pieces of equipment like fridges, fryers, and ovens. But then there was the mother lode, a ginormous conveyor belt oven. Think the little ones some hotels have where you put your bagel down and it gets slowly toasted before coming out the other end, but only like so much bigger. It had to be the width of at least two large pizzas side by side.
I craned my neck to get a better look, and that's when an employee scared the shit out of me. He kind of just appeared in my field of vision. Quiet bugger. The guy was young, maybe 18, either right out of high school or just about to graduate. He was pasty white with greasy hair and dressed in the store colors. He stared me down with laser focus and without uttering a single word of greeting. After a prolonged silence, I said hello. The fingers of his right hand impatiently tapped his leg. I checked my phone to see if I was one of those annoying last minute customers, but he still had another 45 minutes to his shift, so it couldn't be that. I figured I caught him in the middle of something.
Can I get a large pepperoni bacon? I asked, pausing for him to punch it into the register. He did not. Instead, he kept his death glare on me. He was emanating pure irritation. And a side of curly fries. If that's not too late, it's fine if the fryers are off for the night. Don't worry about it.
Still, I got nothing out of him. Not an appreciative smile, not a nod of acknowledgement, zilch. Maybe it was my English? Even in the mostly bilingual city, some people could be a bit rude about that.
Je suis une pepperoni bacon, s'il vous plaît? Des fruits? Curly? I spun my finger around in circles, trying to get the point across. He didn't react. Maybe he was high? I pointed to the cash register. You might want to,
He hit a few keys while never looking down, and then somehow simultaneously turned on his heels while also keeping his head angled towards me. I want to be clear, I'm not saying he dislocated his head to do this. He was kind of glancing over his shoulder, but the way he did it was so smooth and while unnatural to see, seemed completely normal to him. He kept me in his sights as he walked down the counter, around the gap, and into the back, all without requesting payment. Maybe it was due on pickup? I lost sight of him somewhere around the corner. Okay.
I took a seat and looked out into the parking lot, feeling uncomfortably exposed. In contrast to the brightness of the pizza place, outdoors I could barely make out distant houses and treetops. I was basically a billboard for anything or anyone out there. I hate that.
Mhm.
When it's bright inside and dark outside and you can't see outside.
Yep.
Those nights as a teenager where, like, I was in the house by myself, those were the nights I would always close all the blinds
Oh,
and then go to bed. I
absolutely.
was like, "Nobody is looking in this house while I'm
Yep.
here alone." It felt like at any moment, a monster would slam into the window like a hockey player. I imagined demonic eyes stalking me from a distance, waiting to pounce as I walked back to my car. That, or just as I reached safety, a clawed hand would grab me from beneath, slashing my ankle so I couldn't escape. This is how my imagination works,
Same.
too.
I escalate so quickly.
So quickly. My imagination became too vivid when I saw a pale white face in the window slowly approaching. Its features were melting off like cheese on a slice of pizza, its hollow eyes drooping more and more with every step, like a latex mask melting off of its wearer's face. It looked so real, I got goosebumps. I blinked and it was still there, creeping ever closer. That's when I felt the electric sensation of someone behind me and realized the reflection could just as easily have been someone inside. I turned around, but there was no one there, and I heard a door closing somewhere in the back. I let out a sigh of relief.
Had my pizza been made? If so, I wasn't sure I had the stomach for it anymore. I hadn't heard anything from the kitchen since I'd gotten there. Pushing myself to my feet, I contemplated telling the kid I'd wait in the car, if only to get out of the bright light where I felt most vulnerable. Plus, I was kind of hoping it would nudge him into action or that I would see him kneading dough. I called out, "Excuse me?" There was no reply, and from my angle, no kid.
I took a few steps closer and scanned what I could see of the kitchen. It was empty, with some pizza pans littering the floor, which I hoped would be cleaned up at closing time. And more importantly, I hoped I wouldn't spy the kid grabbing one straight from the ground and putting my zaw on it.
"Hey kid, you back there?" I held my phone and pointed to it. "I got a bail, got a text. My wife's giving birth. I'm leaving cash on the counter for the trouble."
My wife wasn't pregnant. I mean, scratch that. I don't even have a wife, but it was the first excuse that came to mind. I remember thinking that this is what I got for being disloyal to my mom and pop shop. I pulled out my wallet, but before coughing out the dough, pun intended, I wanted to check the oven. I can be a little flip floppy at times, I'll admit it. I thought I was overthinking things, and maybe my pizza was already baking and that the kid had just run to the bathroom. I mean, he had looked impatient earlier. Maybe I'd caught him right as he was about to have the biggest explosion. Pressing my hands on the counter, I boosted myself up to look into the conveyor oven. There was something in there, but it was way larger than a pizza pie, and it was slowly inching forward.
I hate that I looked at him for so long without realizing what I was looking at. I hate the growing curiosity as the shape slowly emerged from the shadows, like a picture being printed one line at a time. I know I was transfixed on it for a few minutes as he inched along. I know the image burned itself into my retina, even though I couldn't consciously make it out. That all changed when he reached the end of the belt and became bathed in halogen. The pasty kid, his face equal parts blue and roasted, rolled out from the oven and onto the pizza serving platform. Most of his greasy hair had been singed off. His face was twisted in pain, his mouth agape as though he had been screaming in terror. His fingers were wedged under a black tie around his neck, which had gotten stuck in the belt and held him in a chokehold. It couldn't have been for that long, as I'd only just spoken to him, but he looked long dead. I don't know how I'd even know the difference. I just did.
I heard a crack as the belt turned over and headed towards the underside, pulling his neck along with it. I didn't know if the crack was the machine or his bones. I just know the way his head was dangling didn't seem right. This time the machine failed, not strong enough to pulverize a skull and pull it into the narrow space beneath it.
I didn't realize I was running out of the store until light turned starkly to dark. It was an out of body experience. When I think about it now, it's like I can see myself from a bird's eye view running away, like I had no control over my movements or thoughts. I was consumed with terror. It wasn't until I was sitting in my car with the ignition on that I snapped back to my senses and called the emergency line. Firefighters were there first on the scene, as they typically are in the suburbs. I felt one of them gently pulling me out of the car and wrapping me in a foil blanket. They probably thought I was in shock. They were probably right.
The police assured me it was an accident. It could have happened to anyone. One of them clapped a hand on my back, and in what was probably an attempt to make me feel better, explained he'd likely suffocated long before he started roasting. I'm not sure that really makes a difference.
Here's the problem. The whole time I was there, it was dead quiet. I didn't have headphones on. I was fully alert. I never heard this kid scream or him knocking over the pizza pans in his death throes. I never heard any sort of commotion you'd hear from something like this. And I know I heard a door closing in the back. What's more, I later found out it takes 15 minutes for a pizza to bake. In other words, 15 minutes to go through the oven. I was at the pizza place for 5, maybe 6 at most.
I told my friends about what had happened. One of them said I probably saw the kid's ghost and maybe he was asking me for help. I don't think that's what it was. His impatient mannerisms, the silence, the almost predatory stare. I got the impression I was interrupting something waiting for its meal.
You don't expect creepy things to happen in new developments, but I guess they're just as susceptible. I'm going to stick to the mom and pop shop from now on.
Ooh, I like that
It's a
one.
good twist. I
Because
like that.
at first I'm like, Yeah, you saw the kid's ghost." But
Mhm.
then I'm like, "Oh, you didn't see a ghost. You
Mhm.
saw something else."
Yep.
Ooh, I see that a lot because a lot of the new communities that are popping up in Edmonton especially, and I work in the industry, and, these communities pop up, and they are very suburban, and
Yep.
then in the communities, like, you have the usual shopping center, the Walmart, the gas station, everything pops
Mhm.
up, and it's very, like, almost sort of copy paste.
Yep.
But when the communities are very new and you're only in like the first phase of the houses and everything else is like barren basically,
Mhm.
that's how I'm picturing this,
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's like one business in a strip mall is
Yep.
the first one there kind of thing, but it's dead quiet. It's very liminal.
Mhm.
It gives that same kind of vibe as like a hospital or a school at night where it's
Yes.
like there's nothing technically wrong happening, but why are all my hairs standing on end anyway?
I liked it because usually when we talk about paranormal things, we talk about places from the early 1900s like we did for a lot of our
Yes.
stories today. So this story,
Kind of brings it into
it
the modern
does.
era. I like that. Very
Yeah.
nice, very nice. Honestly, Manon does such wonderful writing. I have yet to be anything less than thrilled.
Absolutely. Wonderful, fantastic work. Thank you to those of you who submitted your
Mhm.
true stories, and thank you to Manon. This is Grim Encounters 6, so that means if you want more of this, there's 5 other episodes you can listen to, and
Mhm.
I think they're worth listening to because they're fantastic.
At first I thought you were going to be like, "I think they're worthless." And I was going to be like, "How dare you?"
You have my permission to just straight up slap me if I say
If
that.
if you're ever, in a situation and you can't directly tell me that you need help,
Yeah,
that's how you would indicate to me that you need
perfect.
help.
You can still slap me just for the content.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we gotta do it for the content.
Alrighty, well, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you all, of course, for coming to hang out. We are at the point of the episode where we give a big shout out to our fantastic patrons over on Patreon.
Yes, and I recommend checking out the Patreon. There is a
Mhm.
free tier. In that free tier, you get early episode reveals. The paid tiers, you get access to Discord.
Mhm.
There's videos that we post. There's all sorts of fun stuff, as well as, of course, the video versions of all the episodes, which are
Yep.
super fun.
Mhm.
I want to say a giant thank you to our Grim VIPs. Thank you so, so much to Atlantean Jedi, Bob, Hillary, Brian, Judy, Nova, Kevinus Musicus, Steven Centauri, Lisa, and Mayhem Mudkip.
Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts.
You're the
Y'all are the
best.
best. Titty City, Cat's Pajamas,
Bees knees, baby.
bees, knees, all that good stuff. Well, Is that everything, do you think, for today?
That is everything.
All
Check us
right.
out on social media.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitch. We're trying to hit 50 followers.
Mhm.
Twitch.tv/The Grim Curriculum. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, where we do weekly premieres, 12 p.m. MST on Saturdays. Check that out. And yeah, show some love on all the platforms
Mhm.
because it means a lot and it helps us out.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been The
The
Grim
Grim Curriculum.
Curriculum. Okay. I have a fun little language fact for us today.
Let's hear it.
A snootful is the amount of drunk, am I drunk? A snootful is the amount of alcohol it takes you to get drunk.
That sounds fun.
Isn't that fun? A snootful. So for some people that might be 1, for some people that might be 20, but a snootful. So, you know what? Let us know in the comments, what's a snootful for you?
Bye.